On today's show, the Nets fall to 0-7 with a loss to the Timberwolves. I'll tell you why their defense has become their greatest tank weapon right now.
You are Locked On Nets, your daily Brooklyn Nets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to the Locked On Nets podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team, the Brooklyn Nets, every single day. I'm Erik Slater, Brooklyn Nets beat reporter for ClutchPoints.com. Thank you for making me your first listen of the day. This show is 100% free on all those great platforms. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. And on today's episode, I'm going to be recapping the Nets' 125-109 loss to the Minnesota Timberwolves on Monday at Barclays Center, their seventh straight game to open the season. And we're now at 0-7 on the year. This is where the Nets are at. It has obviously been an uninspired start to the season, but I would say that this was one of the Nets' more inspired games of the year. And despite that, they still fell short. They still let up 125 points and lost by 16 points to a Minnesota Timberwolves team that was without their top player in Anthony Edwards. The Nets were without Michael Porter Jr. in this game, who missed it due to personal reasons. But this game, the Nets putting forth one of their better efforts of the season and still letting up 125 points and losing by 16, I think is a good microcosm of the start of the year and how I think that this year is going to play out. And I think it's a good signal of why, if you're a tank supporter, if you're somebody who's rooting for this team to maximize its lottery odds and try to land the pick that they missed out on in this past year's draft, this Nets defense, this porous Nets defense, has become the greatest asset to this Nets team's tank. Because entering the year, I thought that the offensive struggles were going to fuel the Nets tank. I thought that the Nets came into this season, they obviously entered the year strategically with only rookie point guards on the roster. And I looked at that and I said it repeatedly, that going from Dennis Schroeder and some of the ball handlers the Nets had last year to the rookie point guards, I thought was going to be a huge inhibitor for their offense and ultimately lead to them losing tons of games. And don't get me wrong, the offense hasn't been good. It's been bad. The subpar point guard play has been an inhibitor, but it's been their defense that has fueled these losses and is going to fuel their tank. If you look at what the Nets have done defensively through 7 games, they're giving up 128 points a game, 128 points a game. And you look at this with the way that this roster is constructed, with their offensive limitations, with just the shot creation deficiencies that they have up and down the roster. If you give 128 points per game, there's going to be no way for this Nets team to compete. And that has been the case early this season. Even when the offense has played well, when Michael Porter Jr. and Cam Thomas have had it going, which is not going to happen on a lot of nights and hasn't happened in recent games, the defense has not allowed them to get over the hump. And on the nights where you have one of MPJ or Cam Thomas not playing well, when the Nets don't shoot well from three as a whole, this defense is going to lead to a lot of blowout losses. And you just look at this tonight, like, this was objectively one of the Nets' better defensive performances of the season. And you look at it, the Timberwolves scored 125 points. They shot 44 of 78 from the field. That's 56.4%. Shot 14 of 35 from three, 40%. They scored 28-plus points in every quarter and over 30 points in 2 quarters. And the Nets gave up 14 offensive rebounds, leading to 19 second-chance points. And despite that, we actually heard Jordi Fernandez and a lot of people on this Nets roster, a lot of players, point to this game as a sign of improvement. Jordi Fernandez actually gave a quote after the game, and he said, "I thought you saw really positive steps tonight, allowing less than 30 points in 2 quarters. That's a win for us right now." And that is just underscoring how far this Nets team has to go defensively. The fact that giving up 28 points in 2 quarters is legitimately a win for this Nets team. Like, I don't think Jordi Fernandez is, being facetious or like anything saying that. I think he genuinely means it. And I don't think it's incorrect. Like, Jordi's trying to be positive after the Nets' embarrassing loss on Sunday, and I give him props for that. But it's true. Like, giving up less than 30 points is a win for this Nets defense. That's how far away they are. And you look at it, I just don't see a way that this team gets much better defensively. Like, you look at the personnel limitations of this Nets team, they don't have a good point of attack defender on this team, let alone like a high level or an elite one. They don't have a good one. Like, you look at the guys that they have guarding at the point of attack. It's Terrence Mann, it's Zaire Williams, it's whoever else you want to say. And like, they give effort, they try, They have like good attributes defensively, but none of them or neither of them or whoever else you want to talk about are high-level point of attack defenders, let alone good ones. And then you add in who the Nets have playing in this backcourt. I mean, we're talking about guys like Cam Thomas, who's obviously really bad defensively, Tyrese Martin, Egor Demin, a rookie, Tyrese Martin, a journeyman. Like, these are not guys who are going to be positives on the defensive end of the floor. And if you're a tank supporter, if you're somebody who is rooting for this team to get a real high chance of getting one of these top draft prospects, this is a positive. And this is the main positive of the Nets season. Is this is obviously a year that is geared towards draft position and player development. And the draft position box, a lot of people would say, is the 1A in that equation. And right now, the Nets are passing that test with flying colors. And you look at it, if you're a Nets fan, maybe you did or you didn't tune into this game against the Timberwolves where they got, they didn't get blown out, but they put forth a little bit of an inspired effort. And then ultimately they ended up getting kind of boat raced at the end. But you look at it around the college basketball world right now, this was day one of the college basketball season. And you have guys like Darren Peterson is out there lighting it up. And sure, he's only playing against Green Bay, but we saw him in the preseason game against Tennessee go off. You look outside of Darren Peterson tonight, AJ DeBansta, Koa Pete, Michael Brown, Caleb Wilson. These guys are hooping. And if you tune in and you watch this Nets team and you look at their struggles defensively, and I'm telling you why I feel like it's not going to change and it's ultimately going to bolster their draft position, these college dudes, they're looking for real right now. And I know that it's tough right now with how this Nets season is going, but the draft position, the lottery odds, all of that ultimately might be a positive, and you're seeing it with the high-level play and how good some of these college prospects are right now. But outside of that, outside of the Nets' defensive struggles, this is obviously a season that is going to be also geared at player development. And we saw Egor Demin get an expanded workload in this game compared to Sunday's loss. We also saw some of the Nets rookies who you thought might get into the lineup not get to play. So what went into those decisions from Jordi Fernandez, and how did the Nets move forward with their player development versus trying to compete dilemma? I'll get into all that when I continue Locked On Nets after a quick break. Basketball season is officially here, and nothing beats being in the arena for those opening games. But let's be real, getting tickets can be a total headache. Between waiting in queues, surprise fees, and prices that jump right before checkout, it's easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is cheer on your team. That's where Game Time comes in, the app that gives fans the advantage. It's your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NBA tickets fast, easy, and stress-free. Guys, you can grab Game Time. You can grab seats with Game Time for any NBA game, and it couldn't be simpler. You'll have great seats in minutes, and I love that what you see is what you pay. No hidden fees at checkout. Plus, you can see exactly what your seat view looks like before you buy the tickets with their in-app seat view feature, and their zone deals are truly a game changer. You pick the section, Game Time picks your seats, and you save big. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Coming back from the break, continuing today's Locked On Nets podcast, talking about Brooklyn's 125-109 loss to the Minnesota Timberwolves. And we saw in the game on Sunday, the main storyline of that game was Jordi Fernandez benching the Nets rookies, taking Ben Surratt out of the rotation, putting Tyrese Martin into the starting lineup, and also Egor Demin only playing 15 minutes in that game, 4 of which came in garbage time at the very end. And we saw in this game against Minnesota, Ben Surratt remained out of the lineup, and Egor Demin did get an expanded workload, which was nice to see. And you look at Egor and some of the things that he did in this game, he still did struggle. I mean, you look at the box score Egor had. He played 21 minutes. He had 2 points, 4 assists, 2 rebounds, 1 of 4 from the field, 0 of 2 from 3. So nothing to write home about. But I did think that there were moments in this game where you saw some positive steps forward in terms of Egor doing some things, initiating offense, handling the ball in the pick and roll, and looking a little bit more comfortable and showing a little bit more creativity than we have seen in prior games. So you look at this, there was a stretch in the third quarter of this game where Egor was on the court. Cam Thomas was on the bench for a large stretch of it, and we saw Egor handling in the pick and roll. We saw him get downhill, and we saw him start to do some more things that he really had yet to show through his first 5 games. Then that game on Sunday, he showed a little bit more. We saw him get to the basket and scoring a layup. And in this game, we saw him handling in the pick and roll, and we did see a little more scoring creativity, a little bit more like baby step flashes of some of the playmaking things that you could see from him that you saw at BYU. And you look at Egor in this game, like he got downhill, his only basket, he hit a step back in the mid-range. It's the first mid-range bucket we've seen from him so far. He had another take where he was handling the pick and roll. He came around the screen, he got downhill, he hit Naz Reid, who was in drop, with a little hesitation. He had a finger roll to the rim with his inside hand, right hand, and he almost finished it. It just rolled out on him. So those things are things that we have yet to see from Egor Demin this far. We also saw a few pick and roll reps where he was getting downhill and trying to spray to some shooters. So all those things, like, it's nothing to write home about. He still scored 2 points. He was 1 of 4 from the field, but we saw him handling in the pick and roll. We saw him gain a little bit of comfort in that. We saw him have some added ball handling reps, some added pick and roll reps that we really haven't seen thus far. And that's a positive, because that was Egor's top strength at BYU, was his pick and roll playmaking and some of the pick and roll scoring that he was able to do. And we just haven't seen it early on in this Nets season. Egor has been largely a bystander offensively. And a lot of that is due to his ball handling limitations, but also some of that is due to how the Nets are trying to operate this offense. And I understand it, that the Nets are reluctant to fully lean into Egor, to fully lean into just, spamming pick and rolls for him or running him off zoom actions, giving him all of these on-ball reps, because right now they are still trying to win and they are still trying to compete and pick up their first victory and keep the locker room bought in somewhat. So I understand it, why they're not fully leaning into Egor, but I would say that this is your first lottery pick in 15 years. This is a guy that a lot of people want to see, and it's a guy who is clearly going to benefit with added on-ball reps, because he saw it in this game. As Egor got a few pick and roll reps, as he started getting downhill, we started to see him gain a little more comfort. And I asked Jordi Fernandez about it after the game, and he said, Egor playing 21 minutes against a Minnesota Timberwolves team like this, that is that physical, has that level of defense, that's a major positive. And I would add to it and say that him getting more pick and roll reps and him getting comfortable and showing some flashes of creativity, just minor baby steps of what we saw at BYU. The more you give Egor those pick and roll reps, the more you allow him to do some of those things, he's going to keep getting more and more comfortable, and we're going to see more of what he did at BYU start to come out. Now, the Nets are reluctant to just fully lean into that and do that right now because they're trying to compete, but I would say as the year progresses, you're going to see more and more of that, and I would say that the Nets should probably start giving Egor more of those reps sooner rather than later and let him start to gain some more comfort and build some more momentum. But on that note of the Nets trying to compete in this game and the Nets trying to compete overall, get their first victory, not fully leaning into the development of the rookies with Egor, as I just said, but also in this game, Michael Porter Jr. was out in this game. So one of the Nets power forwards was out. Noah Clowney got the start, and Danny Wolf, who has missed the past few games due to an ankle sprain and had yet to make his Nets debut, you thought that this might be a game that Danny Wolf might get some playing time and he might get into the rotation. And Noah Clowney's been struggling. MPJ's out. Like, this is the perfect time with Danny Wolf available to give him some reps. And that didn't happen. Also, Ben Surratt didn't play till the very end. Nolan Troy didn't play till the very end. Danny Wolf ended up making his debut, checking in with like 3 minutes left in garbage time. But as I said with Egor, like, we're just not seeing the Nets team lean into playing the rookies, lean fully into development. And I understand why. Like, Jordi is trying to make a good faith effort to compete, which he ultimately needs to, because you look at this Nets team, they're 0-7. They've yet to win a game. Like, it's clearly there has been an apathetic attitude amongst the team for a lot of the beginning of this season. And you look at it, they're 0-6 after that loss on Sunday to a shorthanded Philadelphia 76ers team where they put forth an embarrassing effort and just completely run off the floor. And then Jordi Fernandez had one-on-one meetings with certain Nets players on Monday morning. Also, the Nets met as a team, and clearly effort, focus, engagement were big parts of that meeting, and trying to keep people involved, engaged, trying to keep this thing from further spiraling. And if you're going to do that and you're going to have that message of telling these guys you need them to play hard, you need them to do some of these things, you better, as a coach, try to be putting forth your best effort to try to win games. And right now, that's going to involve not playing all of the rookies. So I understand what Jordi is trying to do, but I would say, I'd offer a caveat there that's saying, Danny Wolf has yet to play, but Danny Wolf is 21 years old. He's older than some of the rest of these rookies. And the way that we've seen Noah Clowney struggle thus far, it's not entirely clear that Noah Clowney gives the Nets a better chance to win than Danny Wolf. Sure, we haven't seen Danny Wolf play at all. There might be some growing pains, but he has, I'd say, one of the more NBA-ready skill sets of these Nets rookies. So I could have seen him could have seen Jordi Fernandez giving him minutes in this game. He ultimately didn't decide to until garbage time. But as we see the season progress, it's going to become more and more apparent that this team is not built to compete, regardless of whether the veterans are playing. Like we saw it in these last two games against a Philadelphia 76ers team that was shorthanded and a Minnesota Timberwolves team that was shorthanded. Like both of those teams were missing some of their top players. Joel Embiid, Paul George, Jared McCain out for Philadelphia. Anthony Edwards out for this Timberwolves team. And yet, even with the veterans and Jordi trying to lean into it and do everything that he can to compete, the Nets were blown out against Philadelphia, and they ultimately got pretty much blown out at the end of this Timberwolves game. So it's going to be evident as the season progresses that this Nets team is not built to compete, regardless of who's on the floor. I think early on, Jordi is going to have to keep trying to compete and keep trying to put the best lineups out there to win, even if that means not playing some of the rookies. But as we see the year progress, it's going to become more and more evident, and that's when we're going to see that these rookies are going to start to play a lot more, and they're going to get more reps. And ultimately, it is a long season. Like I understand a lot of Nets fans want to see the rookies play right away. They're, not interested in seeing the veterans play. A lot of guys who aren't going to be on this team long term, and the Nets getting blown out. But Jordi does need to try to keep some kind of buy-in. And until the Nets pick up that first win, it's going to be really difficult to just commit to playing all of these rookies all these minutes. But I was glad that Egor Demin got 21 minutes in this game. I think that was a major positive. That was the top change I wanted to see compared to the rotations in the Philadelphia game on Sunday. Egor played his first back-to-back of the season and got through it healthy. That's a positive, but I would like to see some of the rookies get in the lineup, particularly Danny Wolf, who made his debut tonight, but in garbage time. With the way that the Nets front court has been struggling, I would like to see Danny Wolf get some minutes and see whether he is ultimately going to be ready to contribute to an NBA team at 21 years old. Because Danny, like I said, Danny's older than Noah Clowney right now. Like he's a rookie, but he's not young, young relative to the rest of these other Nets draft picks. So I'd like to see him get some NBA reps. But when the G League tips off, November 7th is the beginning of the tip-off tournament. I would expect that Danny Wolf and Nolan Troy, maybe Ben Saraf now. I would expect multiple of these Nets rookies to be down there getting reps with Long Island, and then I think they'll bounce back and forth, and we'll ultimately see how Jordi Fernandez decides to manage that. But we also have performances from Cam Thomas, who started off hot, then tailored off. We also saw Nic Claxton have hit one of his best games of the season. So what did we see from those guys, and how could they try to right the ship for this Nets team moving forward? Against all that, when I close out Locked On Nets after a quick break. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. So right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Coming back from the break, closing out today's Locked On Nets episode, talking about Brooklyn's 125-109 loss to the Minnesota Timberwolves. And we saw in this game the Nets were shorthanded. They were without Michael Porter Jr., and obviously with MPJ sidelined, the offensive burden and the load squarely fell on Cam Thomas's shoulders, and we had seen Cam Thomas struggle in a pretty big way during the Nets' last three games. And Cam came out in this game. He looked more inspired. The entire Nets team looked more inspired. And Cam came out hot. Like he started off, I think, 8 of 13 from the field. He had a pretty efficient start. He was making not any high-level passes, but he was making some passes within the flow of the offense, getting some other people involved. And then we saw, as the game progressed, I think the offensive process kind of devolved a little bit back into more of what we've seen. And Cam finishes with 25 points, 2 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 turnover. He was 10 of 24 from the field and 1 of 4 from 3. And, it's tough on Cam Thomas right now. I'm not going to bash him for this game. I thought that, for large stretches of the game, the offensive process wasn't good. I thought Cam took a lot of really hard shots. I mean, you look at the shot diet, he had, 25 points on 24 shots. He took 24 shots. Only 4 of them were three-pointers, and he was 1 of 4 from 3. That's not really the shot diet that Jordi Fernandez wants to see. I just know that for a fact. And it's not an efficient shot diet. You're seeing Cam take a lot of really hard shots. The overwhelming majority of his shots in this game came in the mid-range, a lot of which were contested. So it wasn't the shot diet that you want to see. But I will say that with MPJ sideline, with the lack of shot creation outside of Cam on this roster, it's really tough on him right now. So that's, it's tough. I think Cam, you'd like to see him go about it a little differently. You'd like to see him get more threes up. You'd like to see a little bit more of an efficient shot diet. And we asked Cam about the shot diet after the game, and he said, like, these are shots that I practice all the time. These are shots that I can make. It's nothing out of the norm. And, maybe that's not necessarily untrue, but I don't think that it's like the best way that you want to go about offense. Like if you're looking at Cam in this game, Cam taking 24 shots, a lot of which were contested mid-range jumpers. Like that's just not a formula for success. But the Nets are so limited outside of him that, it's going to be really tough for Cam on some of these nights. And I think you're seeing him struggle with it right now. But outside of that, like outside of the offense, like I touched on it earlier, but the defense from Cam Thomas, like it just continues to leave a lot to be desired. And I really don't think it's going to change, particularly on the defensive boards. Like we saw just multiple possessions in this game where Cam fell asleep. The guy he was guarding was in the corner and he fell asleep and let that guy just kind of waltz in free for offensive rebounds and putbacks. And it's just tough. Like just, Cam Thomas is not fit. Even if some people think that he is, he's not fit to be the top player like on a team and just carry your team. And nobody is fit to carry, a team who's this bad, in terms of the supporting cast. But you look at the way that Cam is playing in terms of, a really tough shot diet of a lot of contested shots, a lot of mid-range shots. You look at the defensive shortcomings, the playmaking limitations that aren't necessarily always his fault. Like I thought that he did make a better effort to get other people involved in this game. But I continue to say it, like they're just playmaking limitations that are just within his skill set. Like it's not necessarily him being selfish. He just can't see some of the passes. So when you have a guy like Cam Thomas leading your offense, taking a lot of tough shots with the playmaking limitations, with the defensive limitations, it's not a recipe, for success. It's not a recipe for a team to punch above its weight, for a team to compete. And I think Sean Marks knew that when he put this team together and paired Michael Porter Jr. with Cam Thomas as the lead offensive dogs and what we all know is a tanking season. So tough game for Cam. I think it was better than past games, but right now it ultimately is what it is. And it's a tough deal for him right now. But closing this out on a positive, Nic Claxton had a really high-level game and has strung together a few high-level performances. You look at Nic tonight, he had 19 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists, so near triple-double watch. He was 6 of 6 from the field. He blocked the shot. So really efficient performance from Nic Claxton. We saw him look a little bit slow coming out of the gate this year. We obviously know that he struggled with the back injuries and all those things that really hampered him last season and what was a real letdown campaign for Nic. But he strung together a few performances and on a Nets team that has looked largely uninspired for large stretches during this 0-7 start. I think Nic has been a veteran, as one of the older guys on the team, as the team's longest tenured player. You have seen him trying to take steps in these last few games to galvanize the Nets, to give them some energy. Ultimately, it hasn't necessarily worked, but it's nice to see Nic producing. It's nice to see Nic doing some of those things and getting back to the motor that made him a really effective player in prior seasons. Like you look at what Nic did during that 2022-23 season when he was in the Defensive Player of the Year race. You look at even the 2023-24 season. A lot of what Nic did was based on his athleticism, his motor, his outplaying a lot of guys in terms of hustle, and we're starting to see some of that in these games. And I also think we saw a really positive offensive game from Nic. 7 assists. Like I think that was only 1 or 2 off of his career high. That was the second most assists he's had in any game in his career. And you look at it, Jordi Fernandez has made it clear that he wants to play as a hub, through the big man as a hub, running some split action, some DHOs, some other things. And Nic had some nice playmaking plays in this game. And I think that coupled with the motor and some of the things that he's been able to show in these past few performances, that's ultimately a positive. So that was nice to see from Nic Claxton in a Nets game where there really weren't too many other positive takeaways. But that's all I have for today's Locked On Nets episode. Thank you to all of you for tuning in and continuing to support the show. If you guys do not already, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Nets on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts, whether Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you enjoyed the content, take a second right now, smash that like button, leave a comment, leave a 5-star review. Anything you can do to engage is much appreciated. But the Nets are going to be on the road in Indiana, and they're coming home for a few games and then on to New York to play the Knicks on Sunday. So I'll have coverage of all that and more when I'm back tomorrow talking more Brooklyn Nets basketball.